the day after accepting the confession of my male god. I traveled through time to 10 years later. When I opened my eyes, a child with grape-like eyes timidly called me Mom. Subsequently, I found the wedding photo in a dusty utility room. Unexpectedly, hadn't fulfilled my adsusher. The groom in the photo was not the male god, but him. When I woke up from a nap, I had traveled through time to 10 years later. I was lying on a strange bed. Just as I was looking confused and at a loss, suddenly a small figure dashed in from outside the door. I immediately lay down on the spot and pretended to be still asleep. The footsteps gradually approached, and then a soft little hand rested on my forehead. A childish voice babbled on about what he had eaten and played recently. Just as I was guessing my relationship with this child, the child's next words directly scared me into opening my eyes. He said, "Mom, you've been sick for several days. Why haven't you woken up yet? You don't like Tommy. But Tommy misses you so much. Mom, please wake up quickly." Mom? This child called me Mom. I opened my eyes with a whoosh. I saw a cute child with big eyes and a small mouth by the bedside looking at me in horror. Before I could say anything, the child dashed away in a flash. My goodness. You know, I just accepted the confession of my male god last night. And now, when I opened my eyes, I already have a child this old. After the child ran away, I immediately picked up my phone and called my childhood friend, Nina. I don't know what I've been through in these 10 years. There are so few messages on my phone. My former friends have completely disappeared from my contact list. The phone rang several times before Nina answered. What do you want? Her voice was colder than I had ever heard. I scratched my face. Her aloof appearance made me a bit tongue-tied. Seeing that I didn't speak, Nina on the other side became anxious instead. Annie, say something. Didn't you say you would never contact me again? Goodness. What on earth did I do in these 10 years? I thought for a moment and said, Nina, I know you're aloof. But don't be like that for now. I just want to ask you, who is my husband? This was what I was most concerned about at the moment. Nina was silent for a moment. Annie, didn't you take your medicine today? Huh? Nina 10 years later has learned to be sarcastic when scolding people. I'm serious. Are you the one who didn't take your medicine? Forget it. Just stay at home and wait. I'm in line for a nucleic acid test. I'll come to see you later. Nina's tone was quite serious. Could it be that I didn't travel through time, but I'm actually sick? And what is this nucleic acid test? Do I really have to queue up for it? Just as I put down the phone, an aunt who looked like an Annie knocked on the door and carefully asked if I felt better and if I wanted something to eat. It seems that my husband, whom I've never met, is quite wealthy. I nodded, and soon a series of delicate dishes were placed in front of me. I never expected that 10 years later I would actually live the life I had always dreamed of. I tentatively inquired about information about my husband. The aunt looked a bit surprised and just said that my husband was on a business trip and wouldn't be back until next month. This was good news. By the time he came back, I would probably have adapted to the current situation. I picked up the chopsticks and started gobbling up the food. It's really true that these are all my favorite dishes. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the child peeking in from outside the door. Thinking that this might be my son, my eyes lit up, and I waved my hand and said, Hey, you kid, come here. He was startled and walked timidly to the bedside. Why does this child seem a bit afraid of me? Could it be that I married into a rich family and became a stepmother? I scratched my head and tried to ask in a kind voice. Little friend, what's your name? How old are you this year? The child's chubby little face was full of grievance. As if he couldn't understand how a mother could forget her child's name. Mom, my name is Tommy, and my nickname is also Tommy. I'm 4.5 years old this year. It seems that I really didn't end up with my male god after all. I continued to ask. Tommy, let me test you. What's your father's name? My father's name is Tommy. So you're here. It's time to go downstairs and study. Don't disturb Madam's rest. The aunt who suddenly appeared at the door interrupted Tommy's answer. Madam, I'm sorry. I didn't keep an eye on Tommy. I'll take him downstairs right away. The aunt nervously came over and pulled Tommy away. I was a bit confused about the situation and could only nod. Since I woke up, this aunt's attitude has been very strange. As if I were some kind of ferocious beast. Since I couldn't find out my husband's name, I decided to look for clues on my own. The bedroom was decorated luxuriously, but there was no wedding photo, nor any traces of another person's life. Could it be that this is the so-called husband who sends money every month but never comes home? When I walked out of the room, I realized that this was a 2-story Western-style small building. Downstairs, Tommy was quietly leaning against the French window, playing with a jigsaw puzzle. The sunlight spilled all over the floor. With his long eyelashes drooping, he looked like a well-behaved boy, instantly hitting my cute spot. I took a big step and rushed over, scaring him. "Son, what are you playing with? Mom will play with you." I saw that little Tommy's eyes widened, and he immediately stood up as if he was being punished. Mumbling, "Mom." I pulled him over and kissed his fair little face with a smack. He touched his face, looking a bit surprised. Looking at his series of reactions, I could probably guess that 10 years later, I might not like this child very much. Fortunately, Tommy is young and doesn't hold grudges. After I played with him for a while, he happily started sharing his jigsaw puzzle with me. "Son, is the jigsaw puzzle the only thing you can play with? Children at this age should have a lot of toys." Tommy looked at me timidly and said, "Mom used to think other toys were too noisy and would lose her temper." Oh no, no. I'm really sick 10 years later. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Nina who had come. When Nina came in, I hardly dared to recognize her. Was this still my tomboy childhood friend? Not only did she grow her hair long, but she also had a big wave perm. And her eyebrows and eyes were exquisitely outlined. I exaggerated wide and my eyes and said, "Beauty, who are you?" Nina gave me a disdainful look. Tommy seemed to be very familiar with her. He directly pounced on her and called her Aunt G. Nina stroked Tommy's little head and said to me, "Let's go. Let's talk upstairs." I quickly took her back to the bedroom. Before she could speak, Imadana will sigh. I took the initiative to tell her the whole story. After listening, Nina frowned and sized me up, then asked the soul-stirring question, "How do you know you traveled through time instead of having a meat?" This. I remember that the last meal I had before traveling through time was braised beef brisket with tomatoes in the school cafeteria. It was so fragrant. I remember that I just took an exam 2 days before traveling through time. And I can still remember the questions. If I really had amnesia, it's impossible to remember such details for 10 years. Right? Nina raised her eyebrows but still didn't say anything. She knew me as well as she knew herself. I pursed my lips in embarrassment and said, "Well, I just accepted Leo's confession the day before." Nina's mouth drooped immediately, and she let out a cold laugh. Then she rattled off to me what had happened in these 10 years. It turned out that 10 years later, I was really sick. I had bipolar disorder, and the reason for my illness was that my ex-boyfriend, Leo, had cheated on me. Nina said that after Leo got together with me, he seemed to be nice to me on the surface. But in fact, he had been secretly manipulating me through PUA. By the time she realized something was wrong with me, it was already too late. Later, Leo framed Nina for seducing him. And in my muddled state, I immediately ended our friendship. And I was abandoned by Leo when I was 27. His new girlfriend was my college roommate. I couldn't bear it and developed bipolar disorder. Damn. This is too tragic. I stroked my forehead and exclaimed. This was simply Annie's miserable first half of life. What about my current husband? This was what I was most concerned about at the moment. Nina looked at me, paused for a moment, and then said, "It's Jason." What? I never dreamed that 10 years later, I would actually marry Jason. Jason, Nina, and I grew up together as childhood friends. When we were kids, we lived in the same building and went to the same school. Jason had always been the so-called, a perfect child from other people's families. He was good-looking, excellent in studies, and had a good character. He would help grannies cross the road and give up his seat to grandpas. At that time, I was young. The more my parents praised him, the more annoyed I was with him. And as someone who is a slave to good looks, I couldn't help but stare at him often making him blush. After growing out of the naughty kid stage and with the first stirrings of love, I did have some thoughts about him. But there were so many people who liked him that I could only hold back, even though he had shown me some special treatment. I just regarded it as the affection between childhood friends. What's more, he went abroad later. Now Nina told me that Jason had married me. This shock was no less than the Chinese national football team qualifying for the World Cup. In a flash, I thought of another question. Nina, Tommy is 4.5 years old this year. I broke up with Leo when I was 27. Then who is Tommy's father? Nina looked at me with a troubled expression and said, at that time, we had a falling out. And I could only hear about you from others. I heard that you and Jason were caught in bed by Leo. As for Tommy, to be honest, I don't know. The amount of information was too huge. And my brain was a bit overloaded. That is to say, I might have married Jason while carrying someone else's child. This guess made my eyes go dark. No wonder there were only traces of my life in the room. Jason must really dislike me. Since that's the case, why was he willing to marry me? Something's not right. Nina. Leo cheated on me. How could he catch me and Jason together? Even if I could do such a thing, Jason wasn't that kind of person. Nina said, I don't know the specific process. It seems that Leo first broke up with you. But you refused to agree no matter what. Then he caught you and Jason together and took the opportunity to shift the blame. This plot is so surreal. I touched my face and said, I feel like I have this kind of beauty that comes from a lack of brainstem right now. Nina patted me. Accept the reality. Sister. After being subjected to PUA, you've really become brainless. But Annie, to be honest, whether you've lost your memory or traveled through time, I have only one thing to say, be nicer to Tommy. I can't interfere in the matter between you and Jason. But this kid is really pitiful. Jason is busy with work and is not at home for half a year. You used to dislike Tommy and simply ignored him. I burst into tears. My dad might be a fake dad. But my mom is definitely a real mom. Little Tommy. The angelic baby. In the following days, please feel the intense love from your mom. I had just finished making the list of my motherly love plan. Within 2 days, little Tommy went to kindergarten. It turned out that they had been on summer vacation before. Normally, having fulfilled my obsession, a private kindergarten like the one Tommy attends doesn't have to have a vacation. But most of the children come from well-off families. And many parents want to free up time to take their children on trips. Thinking of Tommy's lonely figure playing with puzzles downstairs that day, my heart felt as if I had swallowed a lemon. I thought that I must take Tommy out to play in a couple of days. During dinner in the evening, Tommy sat on the chair, swinging his little legs and telling me about what happened in kindergarten. After a few days of getting along, he wasn't as afraid of me anymore. When it was time to go to bed, Tommy, rarely, asked to sleep with me. He was wearing pajamas with a dinosaur pattern and lay obediently beside me. Mom, having fulfilled my sigh, tell a story. I took the book and made up a story. A long time ago, there was a snow prince. After listening to the story, Tommy smiled and said, Tommy is the snow prince. Mom is the princess. In the future, Tommy also wants to marry Mom. I teased him. But Mom already has a dad. Tommy can't marry Mom then. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, Tommy's mood suddenly became very low. That's right. After I traveled here, I had never heard Tommy mention Jason on his own initiative. Could it be that Jason wasn't good to him? So I tentatively asked, don't you like Dad? Tommy shook his head vigorously. I like Dad. But the way he looked at me became a bit cautious. And it was obvious that the one who didn't like Jason was me. That couldn't be possible. Right? On this day, having fulfilled my ansai, after the auntie sent Tommy to school, I started to sort out the sundries. Unexpectedly, I found a wedding photo in the corner of the utility room. In the photo, I had a blank expression on my face, like a puppet that had lost its soul. and Jason beside me. Although he was smiling, there was a hint of loneliness in his eyes. It was really ugly. I casually wanted to turn the photo over, but I heard a clatter. A small box that was clipped behind a photo fell to the ground. I opened it out of curiosity and found Tommy's birth certificate inside, as well as the notes I had passed to Jason during class, and a love letter. It was a love letter written by Jason at the age of 16 to Annie at the age of 16. At that moment, I couldn't tell what I was feeling inside. It was like a plate of stir-fried bitter gourd with vinegar. Besides the soreness and bitterness, my mouth was filled with regret. This love letter was 16 years late. I stared blankly at it for a while, and then put it back in its original place as if nothing had happened. At the gate of the kindergarten, the teachers were leading groups of little kids. It seems that children all have a special ability during their childhood. They can spot their parents in a crowd at a glance. When Tommy saw me, his eyes lit up, and he waddled towards me like a little duck. He raised his head, his little face blushing, and said, "Thank you, Mom, for coming to pick me up." My heart instantly softened. Mom will come to pick you up from school every day in the future. Okay? Can you also send me to school in the morning? I firmly shook my head. Son, Mom can't get up in the morning. At this moment, a little girl ran over and looked at me, asking, "Auntie, are you Tommy's mom?" I nodded. The little girl sized me up and praised, "Auntie, you're really pretty. But why have you never come to pick up Tommy before? The other children in the class said that you don't like Tommy." Before I could say anything, Tommy grabbed the corner of my clothes tightly and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense. Mom likes me." The little girl looked at me, then at Tommy, feeling a bit at a loss. I quickly soothed them. After we got home, I noticed that Tommy was in a bit of a low mood, so I bought him a lot of my favorite snacks and promised to give him a big gift on his birthday. Tommy looked at me expectantly and said, "Great. Dad also said he'll be back." This. I just saw the love letter today, and I still haven't figured out how to face Jason. Is he really coming back? In the evening, following the plan on the motherly love list, I wanted to help Tommy take a bath. But unexpectedly, the kid refused no matter what. He blinked his big eyes and said seriously, "I have a little pee-pee, and Mom doesn't. And I'm almost a 5-year-old big boy. So I can wash myself." I pinched his little chubby hand and said, "Really? Shampoo will hurt if it gets into your eyes. And you're still only 4.5 years old." Little Tommy hesitated for a moment, but still chose to accept the help from his biological mom. He just blushed the whole time and covered his little pee-pee. Soon, right out almost sigh, Tommy's birthday arrived. He was more excited than ever before. Unfortunately, having fulfilled the weather wasn't cooperative. Just after noon, it started pouring heavily. Jason was on a flight in the afternoon, and I wasn't sure if he could make it back on time. So I called Tommy, who was eagerly looking out the window, over to open the presents. I had prepared 5 gifts, hoping to make up for ignoring his birthday in the past. No matter how sensible Tommy was, he was still a child. He soon fell into the joy of getting new toys. When Jason came in, I was having a great time with Tommy in the electric children's car. "Mom, it's my turn. You said you'd only play for a little while." "Son, having so red sigh. Be good. Mom will play for a little longer." When we heard the sound of the door opening, we both instinctively looked towards the door. It was pouring outside, and Jason came in from the wind and rain. More than half of his suit was wet. Tommy called out "Dad," and ran over excitedly. But he looked up at me. We looked at each other from a distance, and my heart started pounding like a drum. Even if I hadn't traveled through time, I hadn't seen Jason for almost 2 years. I have to say, the way he looks with glasses on now is simply driving me crazy. Handsome guy, glasses, and a wet suit. Who understands this? I came to my senses and stammered a greeting. Jason, however, took off his wet coat and directly stepped forward to give me a hug. I was stunned. Was this progress a bit too fast? He whispered in my ear, "Annie, had out a low sigh. I'm back." I resisted the urge to rub my ear and immediately hugged him back. What happens between husband and wife can't be called taking advantage. He looked at me in confusion but didn't say anything. By the time I lit the birthday candles, Jason had just changed his clothes and come downstairs. I scratched my face. I had been trying to sing the birthday song for a long time, but I still couldn't open my mouth. Tommy looked at me keenly, then at his dad. Then he loudly made a wish. I hope I can sleep with mom and dad tonight. I pursed my lips. Good son. You really are something. But Jason glanced at me and said to Tommy, if you say your wish out loud, it won't come true. His reaction instantly dampened my enthusiasm. I had forgotten that Tommy might not be his son. I'm not the kind of person who is indecisive. While Tommy wasn't around, I directly said, Jason, let's talk. As soon as I finished speaking, his face darkened. I'm tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow if there's anything. He had just given me a hug when he came in. Why was he making a face at me now? I'll go to your room and unplug your water heater when I take a shower later. We were supposed to talk the next day. But Jason started avoiding me from that day on. Every time I got up, he had already gone to work. What time do you get up? In the coffee shop. Nina looked at me suspiciously. I touched my nose. Isn't it normal to get up at 9 or 10 o'clock? Nina asked me if I liked Jason. I took a sip of coffee to hide my embarrassment. Back then, when Leo chased me, I agreed to be with him because he was considerate and good-looking. But this feeling is different from how I feel about Jason. Nina rolled her eyes. I think this is all Jason's fault. If he wasn't so reserved and introverted, that jerk wouldn't have had a chance at all. Yeah, adding fulfilled my obsession. That's right. Rather than blaming myself, it's better to speak ill of others. I was just about to continue chatting with Nina when my phone suddenly rang. 20 minutes later, I showed up at the gate of the kindergarten. There was no other reason. I was just called in as a parent. In the office, Tommy had a stubborn look on his face. Another child was crying loudly. The teacher told me that Tommy had pushed the other child down first. The child had a cut on his hand. And the other parent had already been notified. I asked for the reason. Tommy gave me a wronged look. Then buried his head in my arms and said in a muffled voice. He cursed at mom and didn't even apologize. For no reason. Why did that little kid curse at me? At this moment, the parents of the other child also rushed over and said loudly, which blind person dares to bully my son? My husband and wife came. The man leered at me. The woman immediately looked unhappy. She picked up her son and started scolding. You're Tommy's mother. I'm telling you. This matter isn't over today. You don't even look at yourself. How dare you bully my son? I raised my eyebrows and said, it's not right for Tommy to push him. But your son was the one who spoke rudely first. Seeing that he had someone backing him up, the child on the other side stopped crying. His eyes rolled around. And he opened his mouth and said, I didn't curse. Tommy's mother is good-looking. But she's a vixen and a mistress. Little kids don't really understand what a mistress is. Most likely, they remembered it when the adults were talking. Little friend. Do you know that a child who curses will have his tongue bitten off by the big bad wolf when he sleeps at night? The child immediately shut his mouth. The woman said meanly, he's just a child. Why are you scaring him? My husband is the general manager of a big company. So what if our child cursed at you a few times? As she spoke, she gave me a disdainful look. What's more, the child didn't curse wrongly. You were never around before. Who knows what kind of job you do? I imitated her and sized her up. Then I said, you're really ugly and have a foul mouth. Now I understand where the child heard such filthy words. It turns out that there's always someone barking like a dog at home. Who are you calling a dog? Before I could react, the woman was about to rush over and pull Tommy out of my arms. You little brat. Come here and apologize to my son. I sidestepped to avoid her. The teacher immediately started trying to break up the fight when she saw that the situation was getting out of hand. As the scene got more and more chaotic, the woman took the opportunity and tried to slap me in the face. At this moment, suddenly an arm reached out from the side and firmly grabbed the woman's hand. Did you come here to solve the problem or to hit someone? Jason frowned and his face looked grim. The man who had been standing aside watching the commotion like a bystander suddenly widened his eyes and said awkwardly, "President Jason." He quickly pulled his wife over and started apologizing frantically. Jason said, "What a coincidence. I didn't expect it to be Mr. Chen." It turned out that this so-called manager of a big company happened to be the supplier that Jason's company had been negotiating with recently. He had always had a loose lifestyle, and his wife often cursed at everything at home, which had led the child astray. Jason raised his hand and interrupted the other party. "Mr. Chen wasn't like this just now. It seems that you came here more to watch the fun than to solve the problem. If I hadn't shown up in time, this slap would have landed on my wife's face. I heard that Tommy pushed your son. Then go to the hospital for an examination. And we'll pay for the medical expenses. But before that, shouldn't Mr. Chen's family apologize to my wife and son?" The two immediately started bowing and scraping. I didn't like their behavior in front of the child, so I took Tommy and went out. After getting home, I thought it would be a good time to talk to Jason. He immediately said, "I still have something to deal with at the company, so I'm going back first." It wasn't that easy. At my command, Tommy rushed over and hugged his father's leg. Jason frowned and said, "If it's about the divorce, at least don't talk about it in front of Tommy." I rolled my eyes, grabbed him, and went into the room. I turned around and pinned him against the door. The way he saved the beauty like a hero just now was kind of handsome to me. I looked up and called him in a low voice, "Husband Jace," and didn't even move his eyebrows. But his face turned as red as a steamed hairy crab. My face also felt hot. I coughed twice and started explaining about the time travel. After a while, he said, "Although it's hard to believe, it's still a reasonable explanation. Since Tommy's birthday, I've noticed it. I thought your attitude softened because..." Jason's voice trailed off. "Because you thought I wanted a divorce? Yeah. It seems that I treated you badly before. So what exactly happened with the so-called being caught in bed that Nina mentioned? And Tommy? Tommy is my child. There's no doubt about that. As for the things in the past, not having the memories isn't a bad thing for you. Husband. We should be honest with each other as a couple." After I said these words, Jason pushed his glasses as if to cover up and confessed everything. So the words "husband" are like open sesame to this reserved and flirtatious man. Based on Jason's incomplete account, I deduced the truth. In order to break up with me, Leo smeared me and directly set me up. Tommy is indeed Jason's child. We got married because of the pregnancy, but I also hated him because of that. As a result, we've been sleeping in separate rooms for years. President Jason. It's getting cold. Let Leo's family group go bankrupt. Jason gave me a funny look and said, "We called the police at that time, but we didn't find any evidence. And you also flatly denied it. To some extent, Leo is also a talent. After all, he unknowingly dug out my brainstem and made me brainless. This is exactly what the dark history of my life is like." Jason and I chatted in the room for a long time. From the time when I extorted him to buy me snacks in our childhood to the time when I broke Tommy's toy car the day before yesterday. "How did Tommy get this nickname?" Jason's eyes shifted, and he didn't answer me immediately. "Associating with his top student nature?" I asked. "Is it from the sentence vast and boundless? Like the vast expanse of the sea in Chinese? There's a word how which sounds similar to Tommy, and is used to describe something vast. And here it's a playful association?" His lips moved, and he said a bit shyly, "It's from Tom's soup." "Soup? Tom?" I looked at the Tom-themed pajamas casually hanging on the chair and didn't say anything. Such a silly kitten. Who can not love him? When I talked to Jason until the end that day, I didn't have the nerve to ask him to move back to the master bedroom. Regarding matters of the heart, it's better to let things take their natural course. Anyway, heading with my insertion. He's my husband. And he can't run away. As for Leo, before I could settle the score with him, he sent an invitation for a class reunion in the university group. He even specifically mentioned me. When I saw the message, I wanted to rush to the bathroom and slap myself twice. Annie. Annie, and why were you so blinded by this piece of trash back then? If I had known it would be like this, I might as well have chased Jason madly when I was a child. Of course. I'm going to the class reunion. But I don't plan to go alone. I told Jason about the whole thing directly. He asked me what I thought. And I said, first, go and find out the situation. And then get revenge for any grievances. I patted his shoulder. President Jason. Please make sure to support your wife and hold up the scene. Jason raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything. On the day of the class reunion, I originally planned to go with Jason and come back soon. But coincidentally, the aunt took a leave of absence. So we had to take Tommy with us. I think many people have heard about the things between Leo and me back then. Afraid that they would speak without restraint, I asked Jason to stay in the car and accompany Tommy first. Sure enough, as soon as I showed up, many classmates came over to talk to me. Some comforted me, and some taunted me. I looked at those familiar faces. It seemed that not long ago, I had seen them full of vitality. But now they were full of philistinism. Thanks to their big mouths. I also learned some information about Leo. It turned out that my college roommate had stolen him away by relying on several houses that were demolished in her family, and now he has started his own company. And it seemed that the operation is going quite well. Not long after the commotion started, Leo and his wife arrived. Looking at his current appearance, I can only describe it in 2 words: fortunate. Look at that receding hairline, the protruding belly, and the puffy face like a steamed bun. Where is there even a trace of the campus heartthrob he used to be? With this appearance, he still had the nerve to mention me. Annie, you're still so beautiful after 5 years. Leo came over and pretended to talk to me. I forced a smile and didn't say anything. Then I turned around and hid in the bathroom to call Jason to come up and pick me up. I lost all interest in any comparison or showing off. On the other end of the phone, Jason chuckled and said he would come right away. 20. As soon as I walked out of the bathroom, I was startled by a dark figure leaning against the wall. Then the figure spoke. Annie, how have you been these years? It turned out to be Leo. I thought someone had moved a wardrobe to the door of the bathroom. When he saw that I didn't speak, he even tried to step forward and hold my hand. I wished I could jump up on the spot and run 2 miles away. Don't come any closer. I'm allergic to ugliness. Leo's face twisted for a moment and then quickly returned to normal. Annie, had on a low sorry. Are you still mad at me? I had no choice back then. I quickly waved my hand to interrupt him, bowed to him 3 times on the spot, and thanked him for not marrying me back then. It was truly a great favor. And then I quickly fled back to the party venue. As soon as I sat down on the sofa, Leo chased after me. At this moment, there was a moment of silence at the noisy scene. Then there were whispers. Is this our classmate? He's so handsome. Was there such a person in our school back then? Damn. Even Leo back then was inferior to him. I looked in the direction of the voices. It was Jason who had come. I let out a sigh of relief and quickly went over to link my arm with his. Let me introduce. This is my husband. Since Tommy was still waiting for us in the car, Jason and I left after sitting for a while. Looking at Leo and Jason standing together, they looked like they were from 2 generations. I sighed. There's never really anything that's hard to get over in the world. When we were going downstairs, Jason jokingly asked me if the planned face-glassing plot was cancelled. I pretended to be tipsy, gently leaned my head on his shoulder, and said in a low voice, "We've already won. The evening breeze in this summer night is always very gentle." I suggested that we just leave the car here and the 3 of us take a walk. So under the dim streetlight, Tommy jumped around and sang loudly, "I love you," for walking alone in the dark alley. I looked at Jason beside me, leaned close to his ear, and whispered a few words. He turned to look at me with bright eyes, and his expression was exactly the same as Tommy's. I smiled and linked my arm with his. Pointing at the shared electric scooter in front, I said, "Husband, I'm tired from walking. Let's take that and go home." His gentle expression just now instantly became hard to describe. He looked at the little dress I was wearing and asked, "Are you sure?" I blinked. Jason had an expression of, "I really can't do anything about you." He took off his suit jacket and tied it around my waist. Then, wearing a shirt, he carried Tommy in front of me behind and rode the electric scooter. Tommy had never ridden an electric scooter before, and the wind was filled with his happy laughter. But before we had gone 2 miles, our family was stopped by the traffic police. We were fined 20 yuan for carrying passengers on the electric scooter. Sigh. In the end, we still took a taxi home. 22. A long time later, I met Leo again. At that time, I was taking Tommy for a stroll on the street to have some snacks. Before I knew it, we were attracted by the aroma of fried stinky tofu wafting from the street corner. I scanned the QR code and found that the person pushing the cart and selling stinky tofu was Leo. He recognized me too. With a bitter face, he chattered on about how there were problems with the company's taxes. More than half of the customers had left, and in the end, the accountant had directly run off with the remaining funds. He had closed the company but was heavily in debt. In the end, this scoundrel actually tried to carry out PUA on me. Unfortunately, having facilité, he no longer had the capital he used to have. I resisted the nausea and said, "Don't worry. I'll definitely try to find a way to help you when I get back." After I walked away, I directly made a call. "Hello. I'm reporting that there's someone operating without a license here. Watching Leo's cart being confiscated by the urban management." I shed sad tears. What a pity about my stinky tofu. You're bringing Tommy to eat junk food again. Just as Tommy and I were hiding in the crowd watching the commotion, Jason, who had rushed over, caught us in the act. I gave a sheepish smile and said, "We didn't eat. We were just watching the fun." Tommy also chimed in with me. That's right. That's right. Mom and I didn't eat the fried skewers, cold noodles with grilled sauce, or takoyaki. Tommy is a smart kid since he was little." Jason gave us a helpless look and said, "Tell me if you want to eat anything in the future. It's not clean outside." I nodded while ordering food. As the evening lights came on, the family of Pri slowly walked home. Extra chapter back to the original time. 1 second I was nestled in Jason's arms, discussing having a second child. The next second, when I opened my eyes, I was back in the dormitory. In a daze. I even received a morning call. "Baby Annie. Get up quickly. Your dear boyfriend is still waiting for you downstairs with an empty stomach." I was startled and sat up straight from the bed. Who is this oily guy who seems to be possessed by someone named Han? Ah, I remembered. It was the scumbag Leo. Just the thought of what he would look like 10 years later made me lose my appetite for 3 days. So I rushed downstairs as fast as I could and dumped him in full view of everyone. Then I made a call to Jason. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up. After saying hello in a low and hoarse voice, he didn't say anything more. Remembering that I had just officially announced my relationship with Leo last night, I cleared my throat and asked, "Jason. One glance and we can see each other. Yet one step feels like a heavy city. What did you mean by posting this on your WeChat moments this morning?" Jason caught his breath and didn't say anything. I rolled my eyes. What a reserved and introverted guy. "I'll give you a chance. Don't ask anything. Just answer me. Do you want to have a relationship with me with the intention of getting married?" "Annie, honey. I like you. I always have." "Then why didn't you give me the love letter?" "You know about that?" "I knew it 10 years later. Because that day, I heard you say in the classroom that you would never like Jason in this lifetime. That one only moment of arrogance in my life actually made me pay such a high price." Jason. Actually, cutting fulfilled my obsession. I traveled here from 10 years later. You might not believe it, but we're married 10 years later. Yes, yes. And we also have a child. With this straightforward confession, I directly made Jason fly back from the other side of the ocean overnight. Not only did he seriously confess his love to me again, but he also quickly went home with me for dinner. So, a year after graduation, Jason and I got married and took beautiful wedding photos. When Nina was my bridesmaid, she kept praising me for being amazing. After getting married, Jason and I each worked hard in our own careers and didn't rush to have a child. Until I was 27 years old. Is it today? Jason whispered in my ear. I wrapped my arms around his neck and replied in a daze. Tommy's birthday is today. Jason was taken aback. And beads of sweat rolled down his face. Annie had out a low sigh. There are 12 months in a year. I tried to use my muddled brain to understand what he meant. It takes 10 months to be pregnant. He stroked my head and said. So it should be 2 months later. 12 months later. I finally gave birth to a lovely baby smoothly. Jason named him Tommy. Across the long river of time. In the miracles that science can't explain. I meet you again and again.